The Game Awards nominations came out this week, and as always, all eyes went to the Game of the Year category first. Most people had most of these pegged, I think, but there were a couple of surprise twists in here too. Split Fiction missed out, with Hazelight having won for its last game It Takes Two, and Ghost of Yotei felt like a bit of a snub, even though it was the second most nominated game overall with 7 nominations in various categories. But it was Clair Obscur Expedition 33 that was the big story. The stylish, arresting, melancholic RPG with a French flavour came in with 12 nominations in total. That's the most ever garnered by a single game in Game Awards history. It seems locked in to take home Game of the Year, and it's also a strong contender for art, music, direction, and narrative awards, and it's easy to see why. The game's darkly mature story is like nothing else I played this year, and the parry-focused combat added something genuinely fresh to the JRPG formula. So all of those award nominations are very much deserved, and another personal favourite of mine from this year was Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, which also pulled in 7 nominations. I had a simply incredible time playing this game. It really surpassed all of my expectations, and even if the story is some of the most pretentious nonsense I've experienced in any video game, the overall cumulative effect of everything the game is doing has an absolutely magical quality to it. The performance capture sets a new high standard for video games, and the systems delivered on the potential of the first game really thoroughly. The traversal was deepened and the combat was redesigned to be incredibly adaptable with tons of different tools that you earn throughout the game, and I just absolutely love that melancholic schlepping that really makes Death Stranding one of a kind. It does also have some absolutely iconic, unforgettable cutscenes, and that's not a phrase you'll hear me saying very often. Donkey Kong Bananza got a nod too, unexpected to some, I would say this one, but not to me. It's the flagship game for Nintendo's Switch 2 launch, and 1 year after Astro Bot took the whole thing with the Game of the Year award, it's clear that the international cohort of critics who vote on these awards have a place in their heart for a solid 3D platformer. And Bananza is original at that. The land deformation is a blast, the smashing gameplay is really fun to do, and some of the multi-layered level design sits among Nintendo's finest work. And best of all, I think it was a reinvention of a classic Nintendo character that just felt right this year. But indie game fans, and I think a lot of viewers of this channel, will be thrilled to see that there are 2 indie games on the big stage this year too. Hades 2 is Supergiant's glossy roguelike sequel, and it ups the ante on the original game in a way that blew the critics away. It has slightly reworked combat, a new cast of characters, and more levels for the player to fight their way through. And it is the highest single rated game this year on Metacritic, which says a lot because it is game critics who are voting on these awards. So if it came down to the maths alone, then Hades 2 would take home the award, but there's a lot of sentiment involved in these awards too and how they are decided, and I'm not sure that 2025 will be remembered as Hades 2's year. The same cannot be said for Silksong, which was an iconic game release in 2025. It was the long-awaited Hollow Knight sequel, and the game had a real moment when it dropped, crashing all of the storefronts as millions of people stampeded to buy it. The initial critical reception was quite incredible and unparalleled, as it had a Metacritic perfect 100 after 5 reviews, but that changed over time. That score dropped down to a still impressive 91, and that's because while a lot of people loved the game, even its die-hard supporters have a feeling that it went a little bit too hard on player punishment and cruel design, and while it is a much-loved big game of 2025 and a big contender for sure, it could equally walk away with nothing from its 3 nominations, I think. Maybe the biggest snub in the Games of the Year category is Ghost of Yotei. It's a bit of a weird one. It's another high-quality, gold-standard Sony game, but it lacks some of that soulful magic compared to the other contenders. And I'm not saying that Donkey Kong Bananza is Romeo and Juliet, but you know what I mean, it has a certain magic to it. And if Clair Obscur and Death Stranding 2 wowed us with their wonder and melancholia, Yotei is more proficient than mind-blowing. It's a game that a lot of people respect, but few of us truly love in that same resonant way, I think. But do let me know in the comments if you're someone who thinks that Ghost of Yotei is a bit underrated in its soulfulness, or whatever that mythic Game of the Year sheen is that seems to cling to certain games and to slide off others somehow. I was also quite surprised that Arc Raiders only got nominated in the best multiplayer category. I know it's a bit of a fresh release, but it's been breaking a lot of records. It's had more than 500,000 people playing it weekend after weekend after weekend. And as someone that doesn't really play extraction shooters, I'm really taken with it actually. I love creeping through the ruins of humanity, trying to scavenge, trying to take down robots, working with other people and getting into trouble. It does feel like the multiplayer has been taking a bit of a turn with more PvP, more people camping and taking out their fellow players, but I really hope that Arc Raiders comes back from the brink because it's something quite special, I think. Of course, things get very interesting as we go down the list because there there are many awards for indie games specifically, and that's where Silksong and Hades 2's best chance for a win might be this year, I think. The best indie game category is the most stacked that we've seen for a while, because as well as Silksong and Hades 2, we have Absolum. I just started playing this game and I'm instantly in love with it, actually. I grew up playing Golden Axe in the arcades, and this game is an incredibly slick rework of that classic brawler formula. It's slick to play and pretty to look at, and I found it very intuitive to pull off holds and throws and environmental destruction and running charging attacks. And although it is a roguelike and we all have a bit of roguelike fatigue, it has regularly branching paths. Even within a level, you can choose to take the high road or the low road for some variety, and that goes a long way with me. I get very sick of grinding out the same levels over and over and over, and I'm side-eyeing Hades 2 a little bit here. So if you haven't tried it, give it a go. That's Absolum. BALLxPIT also got a well-deserved nomination. I'm an on-the-record fan of this game. I really do think this one is an arcade sensation that mixes everything from Space Invaders to Arkanoid, Smash TV, Vampire Survivors, and Balatro. It's a really compelling, hypnotic, addictive package, and I dumped 50 hours into it this year. I will link my full review of BALLxPIT on the screen now if you'd like to hear more about it. Another big player this year in the indie space was the complex mystery game Blue Prince, which was nominated here for Best Indie Game. And I think I'm going to take some flack for this, but I really didn't like this game, actually. Nobody I know has managed to finish it without looking up clues for its overtly contrived puzzles. But for people who like keeping a notebook and, bending their mind around cryptic clues, it was a big hit this year, so it does deserve that nomination. And Clair Obscur is in here too, and I mean, it's technically an indie, but I think pretty much all of us think that it leans quite far into the AAA space and just looks a bit weird in this company, like someone that sneaked into a wedding reception. There were a few other notable indie game nominations scattered through the different categories, including Yotei, the dreamy football game where you play a soccer-obsessed kid supporting his team into its first ever World Cup run. There was a nod for Dispatch, the stylish superhero story that was put together from the pieces of a cancelled TV show, and you can really see that quality in the direction, the casting, the voice acting, and the scripting. Dispatch is a real treat. It might just be the best visual novel style game ever made, or at least the one with the highest production values. The autobiographical indie game Consume Me also got a nod in the Games for Impact category. It's an interesting little game about selfhood, self-consciousness, and navigating modern life, and I'm really happy for the developers of this one. They really are charming people. I love watching videos of them talking and seeing them on social media. They really are rooting for this game to do well, so I hope so too. And Wonderstop, the burnout simulating cozy game, got a nod in Games for Impact. I'm yet to play this game, but it is on my list of things to try before the year rounds out. There was one big indie snub, for me at least, and that is Citizen Sleeper 2. I'm kind of shocked that this brilliant sequel didn't get anything at the Game Awards. It's one of the more interesting narrative experiences that I have played this year for sure. It really is surprising that Citizen Sleeper 2 Starward Vector didn't find its way into the best narrative category, especially when Death Stranding 2 is in there stinking the place up with that ridiculous Kojima story. I was also kind of rooting for Promise Mascot Agency, which will definitely feature on my own Games of the Year list. It's a really cool open world game set in a small Yakuza town. It's loaded with charm and the gameplay was just very soothing. It's a collectathon where you explore this island and try and figure out its dark secrets. As well as a couple of snubs, there were, as always, a couple of controversies around the awards this year. I mean, there has been a lot of discourse about whether Clair Obscur should be classified as indie. I made a whole video about it, link on the screen now. Everybody has a lot of thoughts about that in either direction. Feel free to share them, but if you do, just try and be normal about it, have a nice conversation. There's no need for arguing in the comments. But there were a couple of controversies in that the developer of Megabonk, which was up for the best debut indie game category, came out and said he's actually a seasoned indie developer working under a new assumed name. The Game Awards then thanked him for his honesty on social media and pulled the game from the category. That's a bit of a bummer for Megabonk, but you got to admire the honesty, and it is a truly stacked category anyway. Let's be real, Megabonk wasn't going to win this. It's up against Clair Obscur Expedition 33 and Blue Prince, so maybe dropping out was actually a clever PR move as well as the right thing to do, as it pulls the spotlight onto Megabonk for a moment. There's also been a lot of noise about the Future Class program, and if you haven't heard of this, it's supposedly a program that the Game Awards runs offering network opportunities and career support to up-and-coming developers. But the Future Class program has been quietly cancelled because the last Future Class laudably tried to use the platform to talk about Palestine. We've seen that in all areas of culture, from actors accepting awards to anyone who has a platform really, and I think, you got to embrace that. It's just in the air. But the Game Awards response was to cancel the Future Class completely. After that, previous members have come out and said that it was basically a sham program, that the Future Class were kept away from network opportunities and mixers, and that they were actually sent to meet in a Starbucks while a big-time industry mixer was going on nearby, where they were stuck with the tab and left to find their own way home. It just reeks of the Game Awards trying to use young developers as window dressing to make it seem like a more socially minded organization when it's just not. And I mean, as much as we all love watching the horse race and experiencing the awards and the winners and the losers and the most nominated games and all of that fun fun stuff. We also see through and through how the Game Awards doesn't really care that much about developers, from rushing through 5 categories with nobody getting any stage time to bundling recipients off the stage for making a short speech. So I think it's worth bearing in mind while we talk about the Game Awards that it is a cravenly commercial event that doesn't really celebrate developers in any meaningful way. It's about games as products, it's about publishers, it's about money and superstars, and it's not about the developers who make games. I kind of hope that all of this controversy makes Jeff Keighley reassess how he frames these awards and what they mean in terms of game developers and celebrating the people who make our games and celebrating the games themselves. Everyone who wins an award should be able to collect it on the stage, even if that means 1 or 2 fewer ads. I personally will look forward to the BAFTAs, the DICE Awards, the Min-Max 210s, and all of the top 10s and GOTYs from my favourite websites, streamers, YouTubers, and podcasters. That ends up meaning a lot more to me personally than whatever the Game Awards has become. That rounds up this video, and if you've enjoyed it and you're still watching at the 10-minute mark, please check out the Patreon. It's only $1 a month to join. You will get to vote in the channel's Patron Game of the Year vote. I will read out the results in a video on this channel. You also get behind-the-scenes content creation blogs. You get 21 bonus podcasts about travel, books, music, and off-topic things, and some game talk too. So check it out. That's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. I'll be back next with my December look-ahead video, looking at all of the great indie games, AA games, and AAA games that are coming out in December. And I'm really looking forward to doing my own Games of the Year list and sharing all of that with you too. So until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you on the next one.